How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Suitcase Gate that quote unquote allegedly happened down in Fulton County, Georgia, which is composed of 90 to 95% of Atlanta and also a big piece of the Atlanta metro area. It is the most populous county in Georgia with over 1 million inhabitants. So the results of Fulton County's election is extremely important. Now, Suitcase Gate refers to when Republican poll watchers and/or other staff in Fulton County and the State Farm Center were told to go home because they were done counting for the day. This was about 10:30 p.m. But after they left, suitcases or bags or ballot boxes, whatever they want to call them, were pulled from up under tables, and then vote counting continued from 10:30 to after 1 a.m. And right around that time, I say between 1 a.m. and 1:30, that's when the big spike happened with a bunch of votes coming in for Biden and not so much for Trump. I think it was like 225,000 votes for Joe Biden and 90 or so thousand for Trump. So that's a big difference. You're talking about 135,000 vote difference, which is more than enough to change the entire election for the state. I think the margin of victory, quote unquote, victory for Biden in Georgia is at about 13,000. So 135,000 is more than enough to change the entire election in Georgia. Now, you got a lot of fact checkers out there that have disputed this, talking about, oh, well, high-ranking officials down in Georgia said it was nothing there. This is pretty much proper procedure, all this, that, and the third. Then they said, oh, well, people weren't told to go home. It was a quote-unquote miscommunication, all kind of stuff. Now, before I go any further, let's roll this clip. In this clip, you'll see video of what I was speaking about. You hear someone talking about what's going on. After we get done watching that, I'll talk about that video. I'll talk about the so-called fact checkers. Then I'll give you my 2 cents, my deep detail analysis, and then I'll wrap it on up with a nice bow on top. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
So according to the witnesses, the Republican observers, there is a lady who has blonde braids who comes out to announce we're going to stop counting. Everyone go home. And in fact, we see that. What happens is everyone clears out, including the Republican observers and the press, but 4 people stay behind and continue counting and tabulating well into the night from that point, which is going to be about 10:25 when they all clear out, or 10:30. And they will continue counting unobserved, unsupervised, not in public view, as your statute requires, until about 1 in the morning. The reason we know this is because when our Republican observers were forced to leave, they went to the Central Tabulation Center and they got word from a news crew that in fact counting had continued. They have information that not everybody left according to plan, and some people stayed behind. So this shocked them. So they returned back to State Farm Arena at about 1 o'clock in the morning, where they confirmed that in fact people had just left State Farm Arena in contravention of what they had been told by the supervisors who are running this operation.
All right, so you saw that, you heard that. Now, that, to me, it seems fishy. Now, I know you got fact checkers that say, hey, there's nothing really there. This is just proper procedure, all this, that, and the third. But I have a lot of questions. First of all, miscommunication, really? Now, you have witnesses that said they were told to go home. Okay, it's 10:30. We don't need you anymore. Your job is done for the day. I can go ahead and go back to the crib. Okay, so it's 10:30. You're told to go home. So why are they still counting ballots after they told poll watchers to go home? Miscommunication? How is it a miscommunication? Either you're told to go home or you're not told to go home. Which one is it? I saw on ABC and a bunch of other quote unquote reputable news sites that poll watchers were told to go home at 10:30 p.m. Okay, so I mean, is ABC going to retract that? Are the other quote unquote reputable stations going to retract what they said about poll watchers being told to go home? Obviously, there's something that happened that shouldn't have happened there. And if they were told to go home, then why? What do you have to hide? If what they did was just normal everyday procedure, Why were they told to go home? Why not just stay? Talking about, oh, they're welcome to come back. Why were they told to leave to begin with? If they're still counting ballots and they're still, engaging in the whole situation, there's no need to go home. You stay there and you observe the same way you have been observing. If they were told to leave and you're still counting ballots, the question is why? Are you trying to prevent them from seeing something that you don't want them to see? What's really going on? That's a question right there. Also, it's not just me or, people that want Trump to win or whatever that think there's something kind of fishy going on. All over the country, you've had similar circumstances with a lot of Democrats coming out and saying, hey, something ain't right there. Doesn't make any sense. Mathematically, doesn't make any sense. People that have no dog in the fight, really. People that are kind of on the other side have been saying the same thing. Okay. You also have the governor in Georgia, Brian Kemp, saying, hey, this is fishy. We should do a signature audit. Now, it's not up to him to order it. It's up to the state's attorney. And I think the state's attorney is the person that's trying to talk about, oh, it's nothing really there. It's not really a big deal. So you have differences in opinion. The governor is saying one thing about signature audits while Secretary of State is saying something else. So those that want to say, oh, well, you got the officials down there. They're saying nothing to see here. It's all good. Well, you have state officials that don't even agree with each other. The governor is saying one thing. The state's attorney is saying something else. So obviously they're not really on the same page. Maybe they're not on the same page with this whole thing with the so-called Suitcase gate. Even if this were accurate about this is proper procedure, whatever, why were the poll watchers told to go home? All right. And also, remember the whole water pipe bursting in Fulton County? That happened on the same night where the so-called Suitcase gate happened. The very same night. Now, I'm not exactly sure what time it happened, but it did happen. All right. But I'm seeing a lack of evidence for actual water pipe bursting. I'm hearing that it was a urinal that was clogged up. So that's a little bit different. If you said that it was a water pipe that burst versus, a little bit of a clog in the bathroom, that's much different. People were sent home and not allowed to count votes, or it was a delay after that whole thing happened for what? A clogged urinal, or was it a water pipe that burst? And what's the what are the chances? What are the odds of that happening right on the same night as this very important election, on a presidential election? This was not on the recount. I'll talk about that in a second. This was election night, November the 3rd. Okay, this was right when everything was going on. So what's really happening? Also, let's talk about the recount. There was a recount in Fulton County, and then just by happenstance, I suppose, there was a crash with the Dominion server because Fulton County is on Dominion. I think they're the only county on Dominion in Georgia. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments, but there was a Dominion server crash. So let me get this straight, Georgia, Fulton County. On the night of the election, you got a water pipe that burst, and you had to shut down counting for like 2 hours or more until they got quote unquote fixed. Oh, okay. On the same night, it's a so-called miscommunication between those that were counting votes after they told or allegedly told poll watchers to go home or to leave, but they were not told to go home and leave. They come back anytime they want. I mean, and then on the re-election, and then on the recount, you have a Dominion server that crashes. There's all kind of problems that just happen in Fulton County and nowhere else in Georgia. And for what I've been able to hear, why? I just want to know why. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. All right. And the fact checkers seem to really be quick to try and squash this story, but not other stories that we know are false. I won't get into those right now. Christine Blasey Ford, Russiagate. But I digress. The whole point is that you got the fact checkers out in full force trying to debunk the whole Suitcase gate, but they won't address the anomalies with the mathematics, not only in Fulton County, but all over the nation, where you got turnout is really crazy. The number of votes is really crazy. You got Joe Biden outperforming Barack Obama in urban inner city areas. How is that possible? How can Joe Biden, a white man, outperform Barack Obama in urban inner city areas? It doesn't make any sense at all. So there's quite a few questions that I still need answered. The fact check, it doesn't do a lot for me. Maybe there were some things here that people thought that wasn't necessarily accurate, but at the same time, there's still some unanswered questions. All right. Can we get to the bottom of the whole water pipe bursting, the Dominion server crashing, and a number of votes that were counted for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. You mean to tell me that Joe Biden got that many votes more than Trump? I mean, it's one thing to count the votes. It's a different thing to look at the authenticity of the votes, because they could have counted the votes normally, maybe, possibly, but how many of the votes were actually accurate? And then they apparently shredded some votes after they were tabulated. So if you're going to do signature audit, how are you going to do that with shredded votes? Did they scan them and take a picture of them? Like, I like to know that whole situation. There's so many questions and so many, loose ends that have not been tied up and explained that we need to get a full explanation. Don't just try to put out fires when they happen. Come forward with answers to questions before they're asked, because you know they're going to be asked. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you think that this whole suitcase gate is something? Is it nothing? Whatever your thoughts on that are, let me know in the comments below. How do you feel about the fact checkers? Did they really explain everything? I still have some questions. You might want to fact check the so-called the ballots to say, oh, it wasn't suitcases. But can you fact check the whole thing about people being told to go home? Miscommunication? I mean, what's really happening with that? Let's get down to the bottom of it. There's a whole lot of foolishness going on, a whole lot of, deals with the devil that have been made over the years that have shown themselves out in this election. Let's get down to the core. I don't want to hear no more of this. Oh, just let it go, give it up. We still got plenty of time. We still got legal action. The Democrats took years and years and years with this whole Russia, Ukraine, all that. Let's take another month or two to get down to the bottom of this. And then if they're able to certify the results, they're able to prove the results, then hats off to Biden. Go ahead and get it. You could pretty much get kicked out of office within the first couple of days because you're not physically fit, and that's fine. And let Kamala the Terrible take over. But until we exhaust all our legal options, there's no time to just throw in the towel. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.